Welcome to the Mission Driven Leader, presented by TaleoConnects.com, where we explore the new, unknown, and innovative themes for work and give people the ability to show up resilient every day. Here are your hosts, former Chief Knowledge Officer of NASA, Ed Hoffman, and partner and Vice President of Portfolio Management at Taleo, Laurel Sim.
Well, welcome back to the Mission Driven Leader. And today, Ed, outside of being able to speak with a fantastic young woman that is just taking off in the movie industry, I want to first talk a little bit to you about somebody that I know not only was important in your life, but actually in the lives of so many people and how he influenced so many people, who was a past participant on our show and a good dear friend of yours, Larry.
Yeah, no, Larry Prusak. We lost him, our time about a week ago, and but I was very fortunate. And the thing I always remember him saying is how lucky he felt. The last time I spoke to him, he said, "Loved life. He's lived the life that he wanted." So he felt very fortunate, and it made me reposition my thinking of how lucky we were, to do a podcast with him and to know him. But he lived truly an extraordinary life. He did things different that people didn't do 30, 40 years ago. And he really changed a little bit of the tilt of the planet in a really positive way. So wonderful, wonderful person.
Yeah, you know what? The one thing that I remember from our and we actually ended up doing a couple of podcasts with him. But the one thing that I remember most about him is he actually made me personally feel that I had something to offer to the conversation. Yeah. And I mean, this guy's brilliant. He had so much experience and so much wisdom. And for him to give me that kind of kindness and capability to actually show up that way was very profound for me. So that's something that I will always take with me going forward, knowing him. So yeah. I too feel lucky and blessed.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you're brilliant, too. I won't keep complimenting you, but also Larry was like that. I spent a lot of time. He loved food, so we'd eat together, different places. And he was one of those people, when he talked about other people, he talked positively. There was no, backstabbing or anything like that. But he had a way of, I think, enjoying of everyone. One of the things I had thought of, I had brought him to NASA years ago when we started working on building the knowledge program there. And when I looked in the room, the audience of people he was talking to, one of the things I thought of, you can look at the face of an astronaut, you can look at the face of a senior executive, you could look at the face of a person who is working the food, line or something like that, and they were engaged and they felt good. And he created the sense of feeling good about being alive. And he was interested in all people. There was he was not a person, you had to be a certain kind of person. If you were a person that engaged him. But I got to share one quick story, just the positive part of him. That we used to talk pretty much every week. He had been dealing with cancer for many years, and then in the last year, COVID, started to impact and all that. So he was last month or so, he was pretty ill. And just before one of our conversations, I got a call. I saw his number, so I thought it would be, it would be Larry, and it was his son, Ben, who was emotional and said he's really, gone down, and we're probably close to losing him, but, he'd like to talk to you. And, don't talk about work, though. It's just about, kind of expressing appreciation. And I welcomed that, but I didn't know exactly what to say. And we got on the line, and I tell you, for the next 56 minutes, he was Larry. Now he's on drugs, he's on all these kinds of things, but he was very clear. And I remember one of the things immediately, he said, "So what are we working on now?" Caught me off. I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "What are we working on? We got NASA coming up." I said, "Yeah, we got an event with NASA." And he says, "Have you plotted out the end?" And I said, "No, we got 10 sessions." And he said, "I have an idea for that." And he said, another thing, we should do another book. I said, what do you think we should write on? He explained what he says. I've been taking notes, and I have notes. And one of the questions that I asked him, because all things, I mean, he's really a Renaissance kind of person. So I had asked him for a while, what's your favorite poem? Poetry, what would you like most? Figuring I'd get something, I think. And he said, yeah, you've asked me that. He said, there's so many different things I don't want to pick. And then he told me, he said, I feel very grateful for having grown up in Brooklyn. We talked about Brooklyn growing up. It's a street kind of place. It's a people kind of place. There's an energy there. And he said, the poetry I always loved was the poetry on the walls in the rooms. And they knew exactly what he said. I'd gone to school. It may sound strange to some of the people listening, but as a student, when you went really to high school, you'd see writing on the walls. It was graffiti, right? It was poetry. And I remember I used to think when I was a kid, some of these people will probably be in prison. They're not going to go, but their poetry is beautiful. It was funny. It made you think. But I thought that's such typical Larry. He doesn't give a pat answer. He gives an answer that initially the reaction is, where is he going with that? But he made me think, and he was always doing that. But a loving person, someone who made people just feel good about life, and really was a gift. Was a gift to be on the planet. So we were fortunate, to know him. So thank you for taking the time out, Laurel. You had suggested that, and I felt it feels right.
Yeah, it absolutely feels right, and like I think we just all need to thank Larry for his contribution, for sure. And we'll probably just rerun our episode with him in the coming month, just to celebrate him one more time, because I think that would be really fantastic. One thing that Larry certainly was a real person. So, we did one episode with him wearing like a toque on his head because he was cold that day. And I'm so excited to tell you, Ed, that we are coming into another real person, which is Tara Dafoe. She would be wearing that toque on her head if she needed to, just to stay warm, because that's who she is. She would tell you exactly what she's thinking. And that's why this is going to be such a fun talk today. So Tara is a little bit nervous, I'm not going to lie to you, to chat with the mighty Ed Hoffman, because you're such a big deal.
No, throw that stuff away.
It's crazy.
I'm just a dumb kid from Brooklyn, truthfully.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there. It's just a kid from Brooklyn.
Yeah,
but Tara actually, her most recent project, and I call it a project, was working with Warner's Brothers for the last, was it 7 seasons, Tara? On
6.
6 seasons. Okay, 6 seasons on Riverdale. I always want to call it the Archie show, because it had a premise to the Archie comics, right? All of the different people were in there. So, but it's actually called Riverdale. And so Tara has a really fantastic story for us to learn about. And I think for both for young people to really explore how to go after their dreams and really capture what they're trying to achieve, and doing it for themselves and not for others, because that's Tara in a nutshell. Tara, I don't even know where to start, because there's so much fun stuff to talk to you about.
By the way, now I'm nervous, because when I read about you, I love entertainment. I love TVs and movies. I grew up on the Archie comics. And so Riverdale, with the mysteries and the uniqueness. So what you do is something that really excites me. If I come back again, or can get back again, I would like to get into the entertainment, kind of world. So absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
So Tara, why don't you tell us a little bit about why I'm preaching about how real you are? Why don't you let's just get into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've already accomplished.
Sure. I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I'll tell you a quick story. So I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, which is where Laurel lives, and I went to film school when I was 19 first, and I was playing ball for Red Deer College. And that was a short-lived experience. That's when I realized I was a lesbian, and so there was just more exciting things to do at that time. So I came back to Alberta and I got a job working for the government. And I was working for the government and I was so bored. I remember I would sit in my cubicle, I'd get all my work done, and I'd sit in my cubicle and I'd like secretly watch TV and I would dissect every show I was watching. And I remember sitting in my cubicle one day and I said, I can't do this. So I called Vancouver Film School and I said, can you get me in? And they said, yeah, we can get you in 6 weeks. And I said, okay. So I called my parents and I said, I think I want to go back to Vancouver Film School. And they said, are you sure? You have a government job with a pension. And that was like the standard at that time. I really did feel like I had made it because I did. I had a government job. I had every other Friday off. I had a pension. I had benefits. I could play ball as much as I want. And I said, no, I think I'm too bored. I have to go experience this film school thing again and see what I can do. And so, scariest but best decision of my life to then up and leave within 6 weeks. I was moved out of the province, right? So and I was older, I was 27. Most kids going to film school are 18, 19. It's a hard industry to get into. And here I am 27 and I'm going to try again in another province with no family and friends. So that was a scary move, but obviously it turned out to be such a rewarding move in the end. So when I was in film school, you learn so much. It's so much so fast, right? It's 365 days, not one day or night off. You are hustling the whole time. But the best piece of advice I got was never turn down work. And as a 28-year-old graduating, I took that to heart. So my family came out for graduation and I got a call 2 days before graduation that said, hey, do you want to do this indie film? It's no money. It's script supervising, but it'll get you on set. And I said, when is it? And it was the day after my grad. I said, my family's in town. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. That's the one piece of advice I said I'd never turn down. So I took that job and it was the best thing I ever did. It got my foot in the door script supervising, which a quick brief on what script supervising is we're the director's right hand. We make sure that they cover the whole movie. We make sure they get all the shots they need. We send any information that they have to the editor. We help the actors with their line. We help track continuity. It's a huge responsibility. And I'm getting to sit next to directors, writers, producers. And without taking that show, I don't think I would have got my foot in the door as a script supervisor, which eventually led to script supervising on Riverdale. And Riverdale, as you know, is based on the Archie comics, and it became an overnight hit. So very fortunate that I was able to get on Riverdale as a script supervisor. And
so what was the fire in your belly, like outside of being bored? What was the fire in your belly to like say, no, I have to go do this, and then also tell your mom and dad, say, I respect the pension stuff, but I believe in me. Like I gotta go after this. Like what was it that created that energy for you?
I think just growing up, you couldn't find me without a camera in my hand. At first it was stills, and then I was asking for video cameras at a young age for Christmas and birthdays. And I was always filming stuff and creating things and wanting to tell stories. Growing up, I didn't see a lot of stories about people like me. And so as I got older, I realized I wanted to tell those stories. I knew there was a baseline in the 90s for queer people, but it was very extreme stereotypes, and I never felt like I fit into those. And so I wanted to be able to share that, what I feel is my story and other people's stories. That's not the baseline stereotype that was happening in those days. So that was the big fire, and I knew I wanted to do it. I left film school prematurely. It was such an exciting chapter for me, finally coming out and getting to explore that. I never felt like I got to complete that, and I wanted to complete that. So I just knew I had to do that, and I had to get out of there. So I
did. So there's lots of things coming out of that remind me of conversations you and I have had over and over again, Ed, about betting on yourself and just being like, no, like I know that this is for me, and I'm not going to let anything or anyone kind of stop me from at least achieving my goals, you know, what I need to accomplish. And that to me is my level of success. That's how I measure my success, if you will. Ed, do you have some stories or examples of similar energies that throughout your career? Because yours has been like quite impressive, if one might say.
Well, as you go through life, right, you take the paths. No, but I see very clearly, in terms of Tara, what you're talking about. I tell my students, and I've heard nowadays people saying this advice isn't good, but I always say, place yourself in a place where you can love it, because, and I tell this to folks who would start at NASA. I said, think about how you feel today, and they feel excited. Everyone's happy and all this kind of stuff. But the reality in life is you're going to be working with people that you can't stand. You're going to be working and having tough days. Things are not going to go the way you want. And for me, when you're in a place that it's right for you, then you still end the day and you begin the day excited. But if you start in a place where this isn't really where I want to be, when things are good, I think you can get by. But when you get to the point where things just naturally aren't going right, that to me would be when it would be hard for a person like myself to stay. So, I think that's one of the things. And I think one of the things I also heard about you is you really made a choice. So, success is a dangerous thing, how it's defined. I learned this again at NASA, that there are different ways that you define success, but you better think about it. So you could say, hey, I got that government job. I got the potential pension. I could play softball when I want to. That is success, but it wasn't meeting what you needed. And you had this vision, this dream, this idea of being able to tell stories that you can relate to, that you can enjoy creating. And I think going in that path is so important. I spend, again, at the time when I talk to people, they're always thinking about where do I do or what do I do? And I think it's important to get a sense of what is it that, not only excites you, but what are you willing to take on, and where do you go? So I tell people the story of when I knew I was going to be leaving NASA in the last year. I left NASA after 33 years, so it's a long period of time, but I knew I wanted an afterlife. And I sat down with myself and said, one of the problems is there are so many different ways people can interpret me, that I wanted it to be interpreted my way. So I didn't want to be somebody doing project management training from the standpoint of traditional project management. I wanted to be on the leadership side. I wanted to be doing knowledge. I wanted to be doing stories and things we're doing right here. So that's one of the things that I hear, is that connection of just the clarity of who you are and what you wanted to be. It sounded like that wasn't the struggle. It sounded like you knew for a long time that you belong in the film business. You belong in terms of direction, telling stories. And so then it becomes, okay, I'm 27. How do I make that shift? Is that right? It wasn't a questioning yourself as much as, how do I do this now?
Yeah, I think that I always knew what I wanted to do, but
Okay.
I had settled into a nice place with the government, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved people. I loved all the women that I worked with, and I was, I was able to feel a lot of happiness in my life doing
Yeah.
that. But I wasn't fulfilled.
Yeah.
I didn't leave work with stories of excitement and this is what we did and this was amazing. That it was just, I was happy. I was seeing
Yeah.
people that I loved, but I wasn't fulfilled. So that moment where I realized that, I think it was really a moment where I was like, this is it. This is how it's always going to be if I stay here.
Yeah.
And it'll be fine, but this is all it will be. And that kind of hit me like a punch in the stomach, as you say, Laurel. And I was like, okay, wait, this can't be it. There has to be more. And I loved listening to what you were saying about Larry. And I was sorry to hear about your friend Larry, how he said that he was lucky, because every time we step foot on a film set, we always say we're so lucky to be here. And we are. We're telling stories. We're throwing a guy out the window 1 minute, and the next minute we're watching an actor in tears giving everything they got on camera, and we're crying right along with them. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, we are so lucky to be doing what we're doing. So
It's
I love
also an
to hear
example
that.
to me of courage, which I think is really important. We don't talk a lot about that. But, there's different kinds of courage. But one of the courage is, hey, I'm in a pretty good spot. Don't shake the boat. Just keep doing. But I'm not really where I need to be. And so you had that courage of, I've got my. I imagine being a father of two children. I imagine the anxiety of, oh man, you're in a good place. Stay there. But having that courage to say, no, I'm going to go on my path. I'm going to go into a better place. And that to me is exciting. And one of the things I want to get back to you is what is it about you that I don't believe these things ever are totally luck. What is it about what you started doing at the Vancouver Film School that led someone at Riverdale and the movie you're talking about to say, we want you? Because you throw out, I was a script writer, to the director. That's huge. That's kind of like, I would imagine that there are people who dream about these things. It's hard to get there. So, what is it about you that, got you for someone to say, we want you, we need you, come on over here, start working with us?
I think for getting the job as script supervisor on Riverdale was just connections, truly. Like
Okay.
we always say in some instances it's a lot of hard work, but it's a little bit of luck in the film industry because
Yeah.
but as you both know, I made the transition from script supervising to directing while I was on Riverdale. And truly I think what it is about me that got me the job as director is I like to connect with people, but like really connect with people. Everyone wants to direct, everyone wants to produce, everyone wants to act, everyone wants those things. So you see a lot of, hey, look at this, look at my reel, look at this photo I took. I never felt like that was the right approach for me. So when I wanted to direct, when I was sitting there script supervising, watching a director come in every episode, I decided, okay, I want my shot. How do I get it? And I asked the producers, what do I got to do to get a shot? What will it take for you guys to consider me? And they said, well, you got to talk to Roberto, who is our showrunner. And I said, oh, okay. So Roberto is in LA, New York. He's all over the place running many shows. He's as big as they get when it comes to our show. And so I said, okay. So I tried to meet with him. It wasn't working. We just could not nail it down a time. He was so busy. And I just said to his assistant, you know what? Forget it. I'll text him myself. So I sent him a text and he didn't respond for 3 months, but he did respond.
Yeah.
And when he responded, it was a horrible time in his life. His father had been kidnapped, believe it or not, and he was going through a rough time, but everyone said, he's coming. You can talk to him. And I said, I don't think I can talk to him about this right now. It doesn't feel, it feels icky. He's going through a rough time. Hey, sorry about your dad, but can I direct? Like, it just didn't feel right to me. But he came to set and we got, we were sat together one day and I just said to him, I said, Roberto, are you okay? And he said, no, I'm not okay. And I said, I am so sorry. And we had a really nice chat. The next day he came up to me and he said, why did you want to talk to me 3 months ago? And I was like, oh, this is my moment. But I always tell everyone, I believe that real moment that we had is what led to him remembering that I wanted to talk to him about business. And I got my 5 minutes to say, if you give me a shot, I will work my ass off and I will nurture your show and I will give you an episode you will love. And I was directing 6 weeks later.
That's amazing. I love that because it tells the truth. I mean, one of the key things is we're living it's about the network in anything. It's how do you get something at NASA? It's the network. The fact of how you approached it, reaching out to Roberto, and a lot of people, if they didn't get a reaction within a day or two, you know what I'm saying. You turn it off. You have to wait 3 months, but you stay there. And then when he's obviously dealing with a crisis, you stayed, with him, with his, and there's that ability. And so all these things, I think, it speaks to your commitment, to your patience of what you were looking to do.
Yeah, it's funny. I text someone, if I don't hear back, I'll follow up, like you say, within a day. But with Roberto, if I text Roberto even now, if I don't hear back, it's not stress. I'm not losing sleep over
Right.
that because I know he's busy, you know.
Yeah.
But when he remembered to reply 3 months later, I was like, okay, this is good. You know, I'm in his wheelhouse of memories, which is good, and we got our moment, you know. But
Yeah.
and it wasn't a conscious decision. I just really wanted to know how he was. He didn't seem good. His dad had been kidnapped.
Yeah.
You know, of course he wasn't good. So I really
Yeah.
wanted to know if he was okay, and that led to us having a conversation about work, which I thought was really nice.
And Tara, one of the things that over the years I think you've really zoned in on is how to be true to yourself, right? I think the the courageous steps you've taken to get to where you are today are all because you've remained true to yourself over the years as you've evolved and figured out who Tara Dafoe is, and who she wants to be in the future. And I think you have this hilarious story about being in a show that was happening and somebody wasn't doing something right and you had to straighten them out, and it makes me giggle every time I hear it. And I was wondering if you could share it with us, because I think from that we can also all learn that, you know what, everybody's just a person, and if you're being honest with yourself, you can really be honest with other people for them to hear you properly.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell the story. It's about Anne Heche. I don't know if you guys remember Anne Heche.
Yeah,
She's a
absolutely.
beautiful, beautiful woman, and we did a 6 month show together. I was script supervising, and it was just a weird day, and she was in a weird mood, and she couldn't get her lines right, and she was giggling and laughing, and I'm stressing because when you're working in film, you're on set 15, 16 hours, but we were almost done, and I had a ball game that night, and I really wanted to make it to my ball game. So we rolled on a couple takes, and she's giggling, and I was like, oh, we're never gonna make it. And the producers are stressing, and I'm stressing, and everyone's stressing. And I just yelled at her. I said, Anne, can you get your lines right? I got a ball game tonight. And she looked up kind of shocked, and she looked back. She's like, okay, Tara, for you, I'll get my lines right. And I was like, oh, thank God. And we got out of there within probably an hour, and the producer said to me, I actually had a meeting with her last week about working with her as a director, and she said, she reminded me of the story. And I said, I totally forgot about that. She's like, yeah, I knew you would be okay in the film industry because you talked to Anne like she was a normal person. She
Right.
is a normal person. I wanted to get to ball, and I did.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I know the actress and all that kind of stuff is obviously, again, a huge name. So I would have probably been thinking, oh, I got to be nice. I got to be appeal, or I got to nurture. But yeah, hey, I got a ball game. Let's get going. Let's get moving.
Let's
Yeah.
chop. And
Yeah.
they respected that, you know. She
Yeah.
did. We crashed at her place in LA. She loved it. She was like, this is great.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I think it's no different, no matter what situation you're in, whether you're, on a movie set or in a boardroom with a bunch of executives that make millions and millions of dollars and decisions for entire corporations, that you have to still be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And early in my career, I always knew I wasn't true to myself. My husband would say that I have my KPMG voice on, right? Like, he was like, oh, this KPMG voice today, huh? Okay. Right. And it was a big joke that I would transform into this different person when I was at work versus when I wasn't. And so I took heart in that, and I figured out that there's the fun loving Laurel, which everybody calls Lulu, and then there's the business Laurel that everybody still calls Lulu at times, depending on her behavior, or Poe, depending on the person. And but now the same person that you get in the boardroom is the same person you get on the ball field. My laughter might be higher, and I might swear a little bit more on the baseball field if we're losing. But the intention and the honesty of me isn't changing anymore. And I don't know that I could say that at the beginning of my career. I don't believe I trusted myself enough to have that kind of confidence.
Yeah.
And Terry, you got it in your 20s. So bravo. Like, that's freaking fantastic.
I love that story, and it reminds me a little bit of myself. Early in my NASA career, at the beginning, I had no idea how I got into NASA. I loved it, but I thought it was kind of like a mistake. And, I thought if I stayed quiet, they wouldn't know what he didn't know, and, all that kind of stuff. And so when I would give presentations and talks, with the groups I was working with, it went well, but I was a little bit on the cautious side. And we were during the days where we would do residencies, you'd stay together with the group overnight for weeks, sometimes 2 weeks. And I would go with them the night, and I would play with them softball, and there'd be drinking. You'd stay up late and all that kind of stuff. And the next day, I was getting ready to give a very early presentation. For me, early is 8 a.m. And I was a little bit hungover. I had a little bit of a buzz, and I had a headache, and I was kind of in that not great place, And I gave just a very brutally straightforward presentation. And there were a couple of, when it ended, I said, it was a little bit off. It wasn't me. It was a little bit rough. And I remembered one of the students, incidentally, a woman I saw after like 30 years in the grocery, Krista Pinkman's her name. She came up and she said, "That was your best presentation." And they said, "Oh, don't lie to me. I know I was off." She said, No. She said, "You were more honest than I've ever seen you. And you gave advice and feedback and your opinions totally openly. It was wonderful." And I remember thinking about the ultimate message to me is not that you have to drink a lot the night before a presentation, but
Yeah.
the ultimate presentation was that you got to be genuine. People they want real people telling the real thing. So that's a wonderful story that you have about Anne Hesh. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
people want the
fantastic.
truth.
Yeah.
I have actually one more funny story that now we're talking about this, and I'm reminded of all these funny stories from my early days. Do you guys know Sarah Rafferty from Suits? She plays Donna.
Yep.
So I've never really been nervous to meet a celebrity on a film set, but at that time I had been watching Suits a lot and hadn't worked in a while. And when I got to set and she comes out of the van, I was like, "Oh, that's Donna from Suits. Oh my." So I was pretty nervous to meet Sarah. But another example of what you're talking about, people just want a real answer. And I remember this one day, and this was a pinnacle moment in our relationship, and we're still friends to this day. She was trying on a shirt for a scene, and it was a date scene, and she was trying on 2 shirts, and she's asking everybody, I'm around, and she's asking everybody, what do you think about this one? What do you think about this one? And you're getting the basic, what you would expect an answer from someone talking to a famous actor. They're both nice. They're both amazing. I think you look great in both. And I'm watching, not my place, not my lane. And I'm watching, and she's just like, "But which one? Like, which one?" They're both nice, Sarah. You look amazing in both. And then she looks at me, she's like, "What do you think?" And I looked at her and I said, "Well, if you wore that one, I'd kiss you on the cheek and leave. If you wore that one, I'd ask you to come in." And she said, "Thank you. That's what I need to know." And she picked the one where she gets asked in. And after that, I was like, that's all she wants to know is the truth. They looked at me in shock, and I was like, I wasn't rude. I wasn't offensive. I was just honest, And she was like, "Oh, thank you. That's all I really needed to know. Everyone's giving me such nice answers around here." I'm like, all right, I'll give you an honest answer.
That's great. And I love that story. There's again, I'm a movie film lover, so I'll be able to talk to you forever. But there was a story with Steven Spielberg when he started. I think one of the first things he did was Night Gallery, which is it was a kind of a wonderful mystery thing with Rod Serling. And he was directing Joan Crawford, who at the time was a legendary actress. And I think Spielberg was like 20 or so and something like that. And he basically said he had to be just honest about certain things, that he wanted, what he didn't want. And he basically said he ended up with a relationship with her where she said, "You're going to be good because you just lay it out there. You're honest and you direct." And again, when you think about organizations, and one of the things that gets project teams and organizations, whether it's aerospace or pharma or fintech, is in trouble, is you don't get the direct answer from your director or your leader. You get all kinds of different things, and I think you're hitting on a key element of leadership, which is that if I ask Tara a question, I know I'm going to hear what Tara thinks, and then I can adjust to it, as opposed to I have to, figure out what it means. So that's.
Yeah, and just so you know, Ed, if you ask Laurel a direct question, depending, like on Tuesdays, don't ask me that on Tuesdays, but every other day of the week, you should get what you need out of me. Tuesdays are
I
tricky.
I always get everything I need out of you, Poe.
You
Does
know
that
what? I'd have to
remind why
take a.
you have the nickname Poe from me, or
That's it's all
Poe?
about the Poe.
Yeah, it's about Poe stands
Provocative.
for creative provocation, and
Doesn't sound
Okay.
like me at all.
yeah,
Doesn't sound
whenever I
like me.
start relaxing, Laura will do something to unrelax me. It's
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we do have to hop into commercial really quickly, just for a couple of minutes, and then we'll go back. But Tara, when we come back from commercial, I would love to hear what your favorite uh, cartoon book was. Obviously, Ed, it was Archie, right? Like
No,
that's
no,
so
not my
clear.
favorite. No.
It's no, it's too late. I've already made it your favorite.
Okay.
You don't.
I liked them. I was more of I kind of got into the Scooby Doo because it was kind of a bizarre
Oh, Scooby Doo.
mystery
Okay,
and
we gotta go to
gothic.
commercial.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back. Thank you.
We'll get back to the rest of the episode in just a moment, but first, a word from our presenting sponsor, TaleoConnects.com. As a manager, you know how important it is to solve issues right the first time. If you don't, you risk wasting precious time, money, and resources on things that could make the problem even worse. That is why at Taleo, we start by getting to the root cause of your specific problem, so that together, we can implement the solution that gets you the results you are looking for the first time. Taleo's unique approach to management consulting and resourcing is focused on building a community of experts that work together to help clients solve complex problems and find success in their businesses. We work collaboratively with you to implement the solution that will solve the root cause of your problem, not just the symptoms of that problem. From management consulting and project management to staff augmentation and resource recruitment, Taleo's trusted team can help you take your organization to the next level. If you're interested in learning more about how Taleo can help you overcome your organization's obstacles and take your business to the next level, visit TaleoConnects.com today.
Well, welcome back to the Mission Driven Leader. Ed, did you hop off and find Scooby and what he was up to?
It was a cool cartoon. I mean, it was mysterious and it was weird and it was. I like programs that they're not what you think they are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I always have that whole thing. And but
Yeah, it was
you know,
mystical
the
too.
Archie, the Jughead, the Betty, that whole thing was also kind of it was off tilt in a lot of ways, and I love that. It wasn't what it seemed. You could look at it on a surface level and say, okay, it's a kind of high school thing. But if you look, you see all these different things are going on. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Ed's always been a little off tilt. That's why we get
Yes.
along so well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tara, what was your favorite cartoon
I mean,
character story?
it was the Archie comics for me. And that was a
Oh,
Yeah.
coincidence. I didn't read a lot of cartoon books at all, but we always had Archie comics. That was
Yeah.
all we had, boxes of them. So
how
that
fun is
worked out for
that?
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
That is
That's so
that is
fun.
What was
amazing,
yours?
really, when you think about it. Yeah, wow.
I know.
That's a full circle story. So one of the other things that we want to talk to you about is the future you have planned for yourself. There's a lot of energy that's out in the industry right now, a lot of uncertainty as well. And you know, Tara, what's interesting is that I, as a project leader, live in uncertainty and ambiguity almost daily. That's just kind of how I roll, and that's what gets me up in the morning, because I love solving those things and then figuring out what disruption I'm going to have next and how I'm going to conquer it. So the agility that I have to kind of switch and turn is very important and a big part of my success. So I guess my preamble to you is, you guys haven't had a ton of disruption. Yeah, COVID was a disruption. You know, the new world of Netflix and streaming was a disruption, but it was actually more of an evolution than a disruption, if you will. And here, this is a true disruption. Like, you guys are like, everybody's taking a serious coffee break. So what do you think's coming back after this coffee break or lunch session?
I think, yeah, I think when they come back, we'll see a lot more short format like we've been seeing with the streamers. And, Riverdale is one of the last of its kind with the 22 episode season, 7 seasons, kind of hit me yesterday that I'm never going to be going back there after that long. But so it's going to be a different market, but I think it's going to be a bigger market. There's going to be a lot more content, but it will be a lot shorter. It'll be a binge series, lots of 6 episodes, 8 episodes. So it's interesting, and it's exciting. For me personally, it's going to be getting my name out there and meeting new people and just waiting for the next shot. And that's where the patience is going to come in, and hope, that there'll be someone else that will take a chance on a new director. And I'm feeling confident about it. I think I'll just continue to do what I do and meet people and chat with people, and hopefully something
Well,
comes along.
I got to tell you, the cool thing right now is, so I'm one of those people. I love the what is it? The IMDb, the movie database,
Yeah.
and to see your name in there, it's like it really excites me. I'll
Thanks.
be telling
Yeah, it's
people
good.
I know. Yeah, so you're out there. One of the questions I do have for you. We love stories. I love stories.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future of stories in terms of you mentioned, and I can see that. I mean, I watch a lot of these 4 to 6 episode series that I love, and
Yeah.
you can binge it and you can get into it. But from the standpoint of storytelling or the medium or the kinds of stories, what interests you in terms of the stories that you want to tell and what the future of stories will be?
For me personally, I really want to tell true stories and real stories. I can't give too much away, but I'm working on
Mhm.
something that is a real story about 4 queer women in the 70s in Toronto. And that's exciting to me. And it's exciting because I get to talk to these trailblazers and I get to understand what they went through when they were coming out, which was so different from what I went through when I was coming out, and so different from what the kids now are going through when they're coming out. So for me, telling stories like that is the passion and the dream. And then anything sports related. I love a good true sports story. That's really,
What's
you
your
give me a
favorite
league of their own.
sports TV or movie?
A
What
league
was
of
your
their
favorite?
own,
The
hands
what?
down. A league of their own.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Penny Marshall. Brilliant.
Penny Marshall, and the
Yeah.
and the show was amazing too. The
Yeah.
show is
Right.
is uh is excellent as well. So any kind of show like that, and I'll be hooked.
Would you like to do a autobiography of me and all my injuries? Because I've got a pretty long list. So I don't. Is
I
that
think we could.
yeah, yeah, and entertaining, like, because it, like, if we actually like redid the actual scene, it would be pretty messy. So we could probably have some
And
good.
you're still playing.
Yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine? That's chaos. Um, so Tara, the other part of telling a good story is being able to see the story as it's unfolding. And I think one thing that both Ed and I talk about a lot is really paying attention to the people and hearing what they're actually saying and the behaviors that they're exhibiting. And do you find that when you're on set that you have to pay really close attention to that to figure out, what is going on? Because they're acting, but they're also humans that have stuff in their lives going on. And how do you
Yeah.
respond to that?
Yeah, it's a tough one, like my first episode of television directing ever, 2 of our castmates were in a relationship and broke up, and they had to act as a couple on screen. So that whole, piece of navigating their personal life with what they had to do on screen, it's tricky. And it just takes like taking that moment of spending time with them. People just want to be heard, letting them talk it out, letting them talk it through, and then, say, okay, give me 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes where we don't think about this, and then we'll come back to this. And, as long as they know that they're going to be heard and you have a plan that's going to get them in and out, it's a job. They're doing a job. And so normally they respond well to that. But it is tricky because they are just people. and they're in the cog that is the 10 months 15-hour days, and they have to get through it like the rest of us. So it can be tricky, but I think just being real with them and hearing them out and being a shoulder. You're a bit of a therapist as well as a director when you're going through things like that.
How do you
And
deal with? I was gonna, you're in a tough business because it's not like a government job where you pretty much you expect every day is going to be okay and successful, but you probably have some seasons, some episodes where people are you're getting ready to get the awards, and you probably have another episode where you have to read some fool saying you don't know anything. How do you deal with feedback that's critical or things that you don't feel good about in terms of the ability to keep moving forward? How do you deal with that?
I think it's sometimes good to turn it off because a lot,
Okay.
especially now with social media, the people's court is it's everywhere. You can't go anywhere without everyone. I had to read things about my first episode, which was mostly things out of my control, but you're just like, I can't, if I listen to that too much, then I won't be able to move forward. But the things that I take the failures on set, like you guys were talking about earlier, those are the things that I learned the most from. And just like directors that come in and aren't as successful as the guy that's done 50 episodes, I learned more from them than the most successful guy. So I just take those and take note. And I can confidently say that by my third episode on Riverdale as a director, it was my best as far as being a leader, as far as the storytelling, and then the overall product. I can confidently say is the best episode I did.
Yeah, so you understand yourself. And because one of the things, again, I read reviews because I love movie, I love things. And every once in a while, I just see fools who, I understand, a 5 or a 6 out of 10 and constructive. You like this, you didn't like this, but I'll sometimes just for the fun read, about Vertigo, and it gets a 1 from someone says this means nothing. I don't know why the rest of the world likes it, and it's like, well, you're come on, man. I mean, you can't see this,
Yeah.
but I would think that to me actually that would be, I think, one of the challenges of the kind of business you're in, having to listen to the people who plant it in your head. But it's dealing with it. It's you knowing what you're doing well, judging yourself. You have a community. You put that story out there. It's the best, and then you go from there and you learn from that. And you don't get taken away by noise. I will call stuff that doesn't really help.
Yeah, and I think listening to the right people, I said to Roberto after my final episode of directing on his show, which happened to be the second last of the series, I said to him, I need to know what you think. I need good, bad, or ugly. Can you send me a note? Because he normally doesn't have time and he has 20
Yeah.
episodes with 20 different directors. And he said, oh, okay, I'll try. And I said, I just need to know good, bad, or ugly. And he remembered and he texted me, and it was, thank goodness it was good, but it was just nice to feel that relief that he took the time to text me. And if there had been something that he didn't love, I would have taken that and learned from it. And he's the right person to listen to versus the people on the internet who are just like, oh, this sucks, you get a 1. I don't understand it. It's a 1. It's like, I don't need to listen to you, but I'll
Right.
listen to the guy at the top and my colleagues, and those are the right people to listen
Well,
to.
feedback that can improve.
Yeah.
So, you totally get that, but it's there's a certain percent, particularly in terms of social media, that everything's a 1, and I won't go negative or say what I'm thinking there, but
Yeah.
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and the creative act is so hard. I respect the kind of business that you're in, because you're creating things where the rest of us sit around and we get engaged, and it's new and it's got to be creative, but it's got to be something people understand, and it's entertainment. What a wonderful thing to give entertainment to people, and you're telling a story, and we're a
Yeah.
storytelling species.
Yeah.
That's
We're
what
very
we
lucky.
do, and so it's a courageous act. It's an innovative act, and it's thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
One of the other things that I really loved about you sharing that, Tara, is that first you receive positive feedback, but the more important thing is that he took the time. So
Yeah.
so there was a level of respect already built with you that was more than enough than any of the words that would have came from the paper, because he actually took the time, and you yourself said the guy doesn't have time, but he
Right.
found it for you. So I think that's a lesson to all of us that are leading, that are coaching, that are inspiring others, is that you don't always have to be really thoughtful in the moment, but you have to create the moment, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
have to make
Right.
sure that you've put the time in to the people, even if it's not as robust as you would like it to have been, to show that it matters and to show that you respect and value them is worth more than anything else that you can give people. It really is.
Yeah. Well, you know the most about that, actually. And I think you do too, Ed. We're just getting to know each other. But Laurel, you've always been someone who takes the time and someone who's inspired me in my life. And I'm very grateful to you.
And it's both ways. Again, one of the
Thank
things I
you.
encourage students is reach out to the person, because you can
Yeah.
get the person in the room. And I've heard some of my students say, I'd really love to talk to that person. Well, talk to them. Let them know you're interested. What a great thing to do. What a great creating respect. And one of the stories that keeps coming through with you, Tara, is you reach out. You say, "Can I speak to you? Can I get time? Can it be?" And I think that's one of the insights. That's one of the things that I've seen in general with great leaders, is that they're inquisitive. There's a curiosity there, and there's a respect and a connection to people that is accompanied by seeking out and not waiting to get called, to the dance, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I love people. I don't want to
Mm,
jump the gun or anything, but I do love connecting with people. My partner always says, "Who are you texting?" And I'll just say, XYZ. Why? Well, I just want to make sure they're okay. There's
that's right.
something's going, whatever. And she's like, okay, yeah, that's good. That's not her. She doesn't recharge that way, but it fuels me as much as I hope it fuels them when they're getting a little note from me, because I'm feeling happy that I get to talk to a friend, even briefly.
Yeah, the power of connection. You never know what it's going to bring to who's on the other end, and so we should always be embracing it, and never forgetting about it, because the second we do, it might be the missed opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Small story about connection. When I moved to Vancouver, baseball is a huge part of my life. It's the one place that I can turn everything off. And so I finally found a ball team, and I wasn't like feeling like I'd always felt in the past, playing with Laurel, playing with my team in Alberta. And I was like, what can I do to change this? And so I said to a couple of the girls that lived near me, I said, hey, can we carpool? And they said, oh, yeah, that would be fine. No worries. That changed everything. Like before, I was showing up, I was with a bunch of strangers, I'd hit the ball around and then I'd leave. And it never felt the same as it did before. But then when I started carpooling with them, we would talk pre-game. What's this game going to be like? What's this team like? How
Mm,
was your day at work? And then we talk post-game. Within a week, I was like, you guys are my best friends. And still to this day, 10 years later, being in Vancouver, I play ball with them and they're my best friend. And I always tell that story to the kids I coach. That carpooling move was the best thing I ever did, coming to
mm,
Vancouver and wanting to make connection and have real friends. And that's all it took was let's drive together. Makes sense. So
mm.
that was.
Tara, was that intentional? Were you looking, going, how can I create a better bond with these people? Oh, well, we're both traveling, let's travel together, and I think that will work. Or was it the outcome that was?
I don't know if it was super conscious. I knew that I wasn't feeling like it was kind of a moment in my life where I was like, okay, maybe I'm okay without ball, because I wasn't having as much fun because I didn't know the people as well. And you're not getting to know the people. When I'm watching a ball game, I'm watching a ball game. I'm in the game. I'm not sitting there socializing. I'm not on my phone. I'm in the game, as you know. So I just wasn't feeling it and I just couldn't understand why. So I said, okay, well, we live close together. Vancouver's a nightmare. Let's drive together. And it didn't take more than a week for me to realize that I was getting so close to these people. And it was the carpool that was doing that.
Mm.
And it's just something that it's always stuck with me because these are my dearest friends here now.
Mm.
I think we actively, I know that Ed certainly does this, that we are actively doing it in business, where we're like, okay, this approach is not working to foster this relationship.
Yeah.
What other things can I be doing now? Like, oh, I know that they go down for coffee at this time. I'm going to try to like rummage through and take a coffee at that time too, right? And I think the more intentional that we can be, like you were, and be like, how can I create something more? The more opportunity we get, not only just out of personal relationships and that sort of thing, but professionally. The best opportunity that we have professionally is to be respected by the other person. So the second that respect shows up, you almost can screw up one day and they'll be like, that's okay, Laurel's having a tough day. And the best way to get that respect is through personal connection first. Or the fastest way, I should say, not the best way, but the fastest way. Yeah.
Well, that's the right way. I think it is the best way, I think. And it reminds me to what we started with Larry, because one of the stories that he was famous for was he was quoting a famous knowledge person, Nonaka, who had been working with Fujitsu. And the CEO of Fujitsu said, how do we get our people to share knowledge and to talk and create ideas? And he said, drink tea. And the CEO turned to his head. He said, drink tea. We're Japanese. Of course we drink tea. And he turned to, what do you mean by that? He says, if you create an environment where people can drink tea or coffee or talk, they'll talk together. And that's the essence of ideas and innovation. It's create a space where people can relate to each other. So it's a nice connection to how we started.
Yeah, I remember one of the art director coming up to me on my last episode, and she came into my office and I had 3 producers on my couch. I had one sitting on the floor, and she said, I've never seen so many people in this office. I'm like, yeah, because we won't, like, no one wants to stop talking. She's like, you got a producer sitting on the floor. I'm like, I mean, yeah, he's talking about his dog. I don't know what to tell you. We're just talking. And yeah, it's all about that connection, because then when I need to talk work, they're available for me, because we had those real talks and we connected. I do believe that. And yeah, it's something that I've always loved.
Yeah. So,
well, Tara, can you believe that we're coming to the end of our time?
No. I need to at least ask another question. You can't.
You said that. What happened?
Yeah, no, we can't. We can't end. I have to ask.
Oh.
I do have a key question.
Ed's tricky like this, Tara. He's always pushing the envelope. Okay, go.
I have a good friend, sometimes called Lulu Poe, who told me that I have a face for radio. And when she told me that, I said, okay, what she's saying is I have a great voice. So as a director, Tara, do you think there's a opportunity for me to work with you in terms of the use of maybe my voice in an upcoming activity?
I think so. Yeah. Well, okay. I will keep you in mind, because you do have a great voice. You could be a sports announcer or
I'm there for you.
Host.
Funny thing, one of the things now I loved. Don't get me started about NASA, because I'll just talk here. I loved NASA. I love NASA. I still sell for NASA, so I love what I was doing. But one of the things that I thought I wanted to do was to be a sports announcer or talk show. And
great job.
I thought for a while I should go to school on that, but but turned out well. But anyway,
So then he went to boring NASA. So boring.
Yeah. But no, I mean,
also, there's still time.
Good, but I'm there for you, Tara.
Yeah, there's still time, Ed.
Yeah, there's still time, Ed.
I feel good. And again, I'm happy just to have you use my voice for anything. Yeah.
I'll keep you in mind. You got it.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
Oh my gosh. You're too funny, Ed.
Sorry.
But I did tell him that he had a voice for radio and not. Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah.
Of course you did.
So Laurel will now smack me afterwards, but I had to take,
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's so good.
So as we close things off, Tara, I just Ed and we always like to reflect on our experience, and I might let Ed start, because I want to close it off with some special notes at the end. So I'll let Ed kind of start with our closing thoughts of this fantastic story.
It's a fantastic story. No, what you do, Tara, again, I told you, I think it's, you have to understand business. You have to keep the cost and everything that we know that goes with a project, but you have to be innovative, and you have to appreciate people, and you have to be able to, carve out, different ways of pulling in all the changes going on. So the skills are there. And I love the essence of you that I really love is the connection to people. As I always tell people, and you mention that, but you have a consistent goal orientation, which I really like. You clearly have a destination, and you're going to get there, and but you do it in a way that's very welcoming and friendly. So that's what I take out of it is this has been wonderful, and I will be tracking you always now.
All right,
in a positive way, not in a way you have to worry.
Okay.
Not in a dangerous way where you have to
not in a
like
dangerous
actually,
way.
yeah.
Thank you, Ed.
And I think the other parts that I just want to share, Tara, is that your calmness it makes everybody relaxed around you, and that's a gift. Not everybody has that gift,
right.
And I most certainly do not have that gift because I'm a fire pot. But the other gift that you have is being true to yourself. And really seeing the best in people. And I do believe, and Ed, just so you know, her mother passed away, and it was the anniversary yesterday. And you do bring all those great parts of your mom into everything you do. And I think that not only is she watching and thinking that you're amazing, but I think that the way you tell your stories in the future and what you're planning right now will all have a little spice of Deb in them. So I'm so proud of you, and I absolutely love this episode, and I hope you did too.
I did too. Don't make me cry at the end, though.
Crying would be good for ratings. No, crying is good.
We're not crying here, but we are pretty damn excited to see your next thing and have you come back and be the director of some fantastic 4 video thing. I don't have the right language, whatever.
I'll keep you posted, and hopefully you'll have me back.
Okay, fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Tara, and always, Ed. It's always such a fantastic pleasure. Thanks for listening today on The Mission Driven Leader. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you both.
So long.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Driven Leader podcast presented by TaleoConnects.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review wherever you listen to the show.